I'm Amber Wilson, 32, and I never thought I'd see my own sister drag my 8-year-old daughter by her hair at a wedding that cost more than my annual salary. Madison always wanted perfection, but offering me $15,000 to remove my imperfect child from her special day crossed a line I couldn't ignore. As a single mom barely making ends meet, that money could have changed our lives, but some things aren't for sale. Before I tell you how this nightmare unfolded and the shocking twist nobody saw coming, where are you watching from today? Hit that subscribe button and like this video if you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right. Growing up with Madison was like living in the shadow of a supernova. 3 years older than me, she was always the star child, valedictorian, homecoming queen, full-ride scholarship to an Ivy League university. Our parents, both successful attorneys, made no secret of their pride in her accomplishments. Family dinner conversations revolved around Madison's latest achievement while my solid B average and participation in school choir barely registered. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. Not that Madison made it any easier. She thrived on the competition, always finding subtle ways to highlight her successes against my shortcomings. When I made the tennis team, she became team captain. When I got accepted to a state university, she reminded everyone about her Harvard admission. Our paths diverged dramatically when I was 23 and in my senior year of college. I got pregnant after dating James for just 6 months. He vanished within weeks of seeing the positive pregnancy test, blocking my number and social media accounts. Meanwhile, Madison was climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm in New York. When I told my parents about the pregnancy, their disappointment was palpable. Mom cried. Dad paced. "You've thrown your future away," they said. No offers of help, no words of encouragement, just disappointment. When I asked if I could move back home temporarily after graduation, Dad's response cut deep: "You made an adult decision, now figure it out like an adult." That same year, they gave Madison a down payment for her Manhattan apartment as a graduation gift. I finished my degree with an 8-month pregnant belly, walking across the stage to receive my diploma with no family in attendance. Madison had a work conference, and my parents chose to attend that instead. Lily was born 2 weeks later, a beautiful, perfect baby with curious eyes and a calm temperament. Those early years were brutally difficult. I worked as a substitute teacher while completing my certification, scheduling around babysitters I could barely afford. My apartment was a tiny one-bedroom in a neighborhood that made me double-check the locks every night. Madison visited exactly once, bringing an expensive baby outfit Lily outgrew before she could wear it, and spent the entire visit scrolling through her phone and wrinkling her nose at my living situation. "You know, there are programs for people in your circumstances," she suggested before leaving, sliding a pamphlet for public assistance across my coffee table like she was handling something contaminated. 3 years ago, Madison married Ryan Thompson, the son of a hotel magnate. Their engagement announcement appeared in the New York Times. The wedding was featured in a luxury bridal magazine. I attended with 5-year-old Lily, wearing a dress I'd saved up for months to purchase, only to overhear Madison telling her friends I looked refreshingly budget-conscious. By then, I had secured a permanent position teaching 3rd grade at an elementary school. I loved my job despite the modest income. Lily was thriving in many ways, creative, loving, and incredibly perceptive, though she struggled with certain social situations and loud environments, showing signs of being on the autism spectrum. We were in the process of getting an official diagnosis, which meant more expenses for evaluations insurance only partially covered. Despite everything, I maintained a relationship with Madison. Not because of any sisterly devotion on her part, but because I wanted Lily to know her family. My daughter deserved aunts, uncles, grandparents, connections beyond our tiny 2-person household. So I endured Madison's backhanded compliments about my quaint apartment and brave choice to be a single mother. I smiled through her unsolicited advice about how I should style my hair, dress more professionally, or consider dating sites to find Lily a father figure. Every Christmas and Thanksgiving visit to our parents' home became an exercise in maintaining dignity while Madison showcased her latest promotion, vacation photos, or designer purchases. Mom and Dad still treated her like their golden child, proudly displaying her achievements while showing polite but distant interest in mine and Lily's lives. When Madison announced she and Ryan were renewing their vows for their third anniversary with an elaborate second wedding, the ceremony we really wanted, I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was her request for me to be a bridesmaid and Lily to be the flower girl. "It'll look good in the photos to have family involved," she explained during a rare phone call. "Ryan thinks it's important too. His whole family will be participating." I agreed, partly hoping this might be Madison extending an olive branch, but mostly because Lily was thrilled at the prospect of being a flower girl. Her eyes lit up when I told her about the special dress she would wear. What I didn't anticipate was Madison's transformation into an even more demanding person than usual. The bridesmaid dress she selected cost nearly a month's worth of groceries. The required shoes, another week's worth. When I gently mentioned the financial strain, she sighed dramatically. "I can loan you the money if you're still having difficulties," she offered, making my stable job and careful budgeting sound like personal failings. "Just don't ask for alterations on the dress. The designer is a personal friend and I won't have his work compromised." Despite everything, I held on to hope that this wedding might somehow bring us closer, that Madison might finally see me as an equal rather than a disappointment. I should have known better. The Bellevue Grand Hotel stood like a gleaming monument to wealth, its marble entrance flanked by uniformed doormen who eyed my 10-year-old Honda with barely concealed disdain as I pulled up. Lily pressed her face against the car window, eyes wide at the fountain in the circular driveway where water danced in synchronization with classical music. "Is this where a princess lives, Mommy?" she whispered, clutching her favorite comfort item, a small stuffed rabbit named Hoppy that had seen better days. "No, sweetheart. It's where Aunt Madison is having her wedding," I answered, already feeling out of place. "Remember what we practiced? This is a fancy place where we use our indoor voices and careful hands." Lily nodded solemnly. At 8, she took instructions very literally, especially our practiced social scripts. I'd spent weeks preparing her for this weekend, knowing how overwhelming it could be for her sensory sensitivities. The valet opened my door with a practiced smile that faltered slightly as he took in my car's interior with its booster seat and scattered crayons. I handed him the keys with as much dignity as I could muster. "Name for check-in?" he asked. "Wilson. Amber Wilson. We're with the Thompson wedding party." His demeanor changed instantly. "Of course, Ms. Wilson. The bride has been asking about your arrival." The lobby was a cathedral of luxury, crystal chandeliers, fresh flower arrangements taller than Lily, and staff moving with the quiet efficiency of people accustomed to catering to the ultra-wealthy. I gripped Lily's hand tighter as we approached the reception desk, conscious of her tendency to wander toward anything colorful or interesting. Madison appeared before we could complete check-in, her designer heels clicking authoritatively across the marble floor. She wore white linen pants and a silk blouse, her blonde hair perfectly styled even though the wedding was still 2 days away. "Finally," she said by way of greeting. Her eyes flicked over me critically. "You look exhausted. And your hair, didn't I send you the contact information for my stylist? He could have fixed those split ends before you arrived." "Hello to you too, Madison," I replied, forcing a smile. The drive was longer than expected. Traffic was. "You should have left earlier," she interrupted, checking her watch. "The welcome dinner starts in 3 hours, and you still need to try on your bridesmaid dress for final adjustments." Her gaze dropped to Lily, who had partially hidden behind me. "Hello, Lily. Where's your flower girl dress? I specifically texted that you should bring it for inspection." "It's in our luggage," I explained. I didn't want it to get wrinkled during the drive. Madison's lips thinned. "Fine. Just make sure she knows the routine. No fidgeting, no wandering off, and absolutely no outbursts during the ceremony." I felt Lily's small hand tighten around mine. "She'll do great," I said firmly. "She's been practicing." Madison looked unconvinced but was distracted by a staff member approaching with questions about floral arrangements. Get settled in room 412. Dress fitting in the Magnolia Suite at 4 sharp. She strode away without waiting for a response. Our room was beautiful but modestly sized compared to the glimpses I caught of other wedding party accommodations. Still, it was by far the most luxurious hotel room Lily and I had ever stayed in, with plush bathrobes, a deep soaking tub, and a view of the hotel's manicured gardens. "Can I touch the pillows?" Lily asked cautiously. "Of course, sweetie. This is our room. You can touch anything here." I began unpacking our suitcases, carefully hanging the pale pink flower girl dress that had cost me 2 weeks of careful budgeting. The bridesmaid dress I would wear, a sleek midnight blue column with uncomfortable boning in the bodice, had been shipped directly to the hotel. The dress fitting was predictably tense. The seamstress, a friend of Madison's, clucked disapprovingly at my measurements. "I told you not to gain weight after the initial fitting," Madison hissed as the woman pinned the fabric. "I didn't," I replied quietly, conscious of Lily sitting in the corner with her tablet. I'd put on her noise-canceling headphones so she could watch her favorite educational show while waiting. The dress was fitted based on measurements I emailed, not an in-person fitting. "Well, something's different," Madison insisted. "And we don't have time for major alterations." The seamstress, perhaps taking pity on me, interjected. "It's a simple fix, really. The dress will be perfect by tomorrow afternoon." Madison moved on to inspecting Lily's flower girl dress, scrutinizing it for flaws. "At least this one fits," she conceded. "Just make sure her hair is properly styled. No messy braids like she usually wears." The welcome dinner that evening was an exercise in navigating social landmines. The ballroom was filled with Madison and Ryan's friends, executives, socialites, and a few minor celebrities, all dressed in cocktail attire that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Madison had seated Lily and me at a table far from the main wedding party, with distant relatives of Ryan's who seemed equally out of place. Ryan himself made a point of coming to greet us, the first genuine welcome we'd received. Tall and conventionally handsome with kind eyes, he'd always been polite to me despite Madison's obvious attempts to keep us apart. "Amber, great to see you," he said, giving me a warm hug. "And Miss Lily. I hear you're going to be the star of the show." He knelt to her eye level, something few adults bothered to do. "Are you excited to be a flower girl?" Lily, who typically struggled with direct questions from unfamiliar people, nodded shyly. "I practiced dropping petals," she said quietly. "Mommy put towels on the floor at home." Ryan laughed. "I bet you're going to do a fantastic job." He looked up at me. "She's gotten so big since I last saw her." "How's teaching going?" Before I could answer, Madison materialized at his side, her hand possessively gripping his arm. "Ryan, your parents are looking for you. Something about the yacht arrangements for Sunday." As Ryan excused himself with an apologetic smile, I caught Madison's pointed look. "Don't monopolize my husband's time," she said under her breath. "His family is very particular about appearances." "We were just catching up," I replied. Lily was excited to see her uncle. Madison's gaze flicked to Lily, who had returned to carefully eating her dinner one item at a time, as she always did. "Just keep her behaviors in check this weekend. Ryan's grandmother is very traditional, and this ceremony means everything to our family connections." Later that evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, I overheard Madison through the surprisingly thin hotel walls, talking to someone in the hallway outside our room. "I know she's family, but couldn't we have put her somewhere less central? She looks so budget. And the kid is weird, you know, she lines up her food before eating it. Ryan keeps saying we need to embrace family, but they're bringing down the whole tone of the event." I pressed my lips together, fighting back the familiar hurt. For Lily's sake, I would get through this weekend with dignity. I wouldn't give Madison the satisfaction of seeing me upset. After Lily fell asleep, I was summoned to help with wedding favor assembly, delicate boxes containing expensive chocolates and miniature champagne bottles that needed to be tied with ribbon and personalized tags. Madison supervised rather than helped, criticizing the speed and quality of everyone's work while scrolling through her phone. "These tags need to be precisely centered," she snapped at me. "Do it again." It was nearly 2 a.m. when I finally returned to our room, fingers sore from tying hundreds of silk ribbons. Lily was still sleeping peacefully, Hoppy clutched to her chest. I gently brushed her hair from her forehead, reminding myself why I was enduring this weekend. I wanted her to have family connections, to be part of something bigger than our tiny household of two, even if that family was as flawed as ours. I just hoped Madison would keep her criticism directed at me and leave Lily alone. My daughter had enough challenges navigating a world that wasn't designed for her unique way of experiencing it. The last thing she needed was her aunt making her feel less than perfect. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. Lily woke early, as she always did, and I used the quiet hours to help her prepare mentally for the busy day ahead. We reviewed our social stories, illustrated guides I'd created to explain what would happen during the ceremony and reception, when she might need breaks, and how to signal me if things became overwhelming. "Remember, if the music gets too loud or you feel scared, you can give me our special sign," I demonstrated by tugging my earlobe discreetly. "And it's okay to go to our quiet spot if you need to." Lily nodded seriously, her small face a picture of concentration. I practiced walking slow and dropping petals. 1, 2, 3, drop, she demonstrated with an imaginary basket. "You're going to be perfect," I assured her, helping her into her regular clothes. The flower girl dress would come later, just before the ceremony, to minimize the risk of stains or wrinkles. My phone chimed with a text message. "Come to presidential suite. Alone. Urgent. M." I frowned. The hair and makeup team wasn't scheduled to start for another 2 hours. What could be so urgent? I called the hotel's childcare service, which Madison had arranged for the wedding party's children during pre-ceremony preparations, and confirmed they could take Lily a bit early. After settling Lily with the childcare staff and making sure they understood her needs, I made my way to the presidential suite on the hotel's top floor. My knock was answered by Madison's maid of honor, Brittany, who gave me a strange look before ushering me inside and promptly excusing herself. The suite was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city. Flower arrangements and champagne bottles crowded every surface. Madison stood by the window in a white silk robe, her hair in sophisticated pin curls protected by a net. Despite the early hour, she held a flute of champagne, condensation beating on the crystal. "Close the door," she said without turning around. Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Is everything okay? Do you need help with something?" I asked, remaining near the entrance. Madison finally turned, her expression unreadable. In a manner of speaking. She crossed to an ornate desk where a hotel-branded folder lay open. "We need to discuss Lily's participation today." "What about it?" "She's been practicing for weeks. She's so excited." "That's the problem," Madison interrupted, setting down her champagne. "The excitement. The unpredictability." I felt my defenses rise. "What are you talking about?" Madison sighed dramatically. "Let's not pretend, Amber. Your daughter has issues. She's not like other children. She gets overwhelmed, she has meltdowns, she does those strange repetitive movements when she's stressed." "She's on the autism spectrum," I said stiffly. "Which you'd know if you ever bothered to actually listen when I talk about her. She has some sensory processing differences, but she's been preparing for this day. She'll be fine." Madison picked up the folder. "I can't take that chance. This wedding isn't just a ceremony, it's a networking event. Ryan's father's business associates will be there. Potential clients. Future connections worth millions." She pulled out a check from the folder and placed it on the coffee table between us. $15,000. Take Lily, and go home." I stared at the check, not comprehending at first. "What?" $15,000, Madison repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child. "More than enough to cover any inconvenience." You can tell people Lily got sick. No one will question it. I've already arranged for one of the hotel staff's daughters to step in as flower girl. The amount registered, more money than I made in 3 months of teaching. Money that could cover Lily's therapy sessions, put a down payment on a more suitable apartment, maybe even start a college fund. For a brief, shameful moment, I considered it. Then the full meaning hit me. You're paying me to remove my daughter from your wedding because you think she might embarrass you, I said, my voice barely controlled. You want to erase her, erase us, from your perfect day. Madison had the audacity to look impatient. Don't be so dramatic. I'm being practical. And generous, I might add. That's a lot of money for someone in your financial situation. My financial situation? I repeated incredulously. You mean the situation where our parents paid for your education but not mine? Where they bought you an apartment while I worked 2 jobs to afford a 1-bedroom walk-up with a baby? That situation? That's ancient history, Madison waved dismissively. This is business. I need certain aesthetics for this event, and the risk of a special needs child having a meltdown doesn't fit that aesthetic. I felt something snap inside me, a lifetime of accommodating Madison's superiority, of accepting less, of being treated as somehow deficient. It all crystallized into a cold, clear anger. I picked up the check, held it for a moment, then deliberately tore it in half, and then quarters. My daughter is not an inconvenience to be paid off, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. She is a beautiful, brilliant little girl who happens to experience the world differently. And she deserves an aunt who sees that, not one who sees her as a liability. Madison's face flushed with anger. You're making a mistake. That money could have changed your lives. We're already having wonderful lives, thanks. Lives with people who value Lily for exactly who she is. Fine, Madison snapped, snatching up her phone. But when she melts down during my ceremony, when she disrupts everything because it's too loud or too bright or too whatever, don't expect any sympathy. Her fingers flew across the screen. I'm texting the coordinator to move you to the last row for the ceremony. At least there you can make a quick exit when things inevitably go wrong. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. You know what the saddest part is? Lily spent hours making you a wedding card. She used her special glitter glue, the one she saves for only the most important people. She was so excited to give it to her Aunt Madison. Something flickered across Madison's face, uncertainty, perhaps even a flash of shame, but it was quickly replaced by her practiced mask of indifference. Just make sure she behaves. This is my day, Amber. Everything needs to be perfect. I left without another word, hands shaking with suppressed emotion. In the elevator, I allowed myself a moment of weakness, pressing my forehead against the cool metal wall as tears threatened. The amount on that check represented solutions to so many of our struggles. But accepting it would have taught Lily the worst possible lesson, that she should hide who she was, that she was somehow less worthy of inclusion. When I picked her up from childcare, her face lit up at the sight of me. Mommy! I made a new friend. Her name is Sophie and she likes rabbits too. I hugged her tightly, perhaps a bit too tightly, because she squirmed in that way she did when sensory input became too much. Sorry, sweetheart, I loosened my grip. Are you ready to get dressed up for the wedding? Lily nodded enthusiastically. I'm going to be the best flower girl ever. I practiced and practiced. Yes, you will, I assured her, making a silent promise that no matter what Madison did or said, I would make sure this day was a positive experience for my daughter. You're going to be absolutely perfect, just by being yourself. The wedding venue was transformed into something from a luxury magazine spread, thousands of white roses and orchids cascaded from ceiling installations. Crystal chandeliers had been supplemented with additional lighting that cast a flattering glow, and a string quartet played softly as guests in formal attire found their seats. Despite Madison's threat to relegate us to the back, the wedding coordinator, a harried woman named Jennifer who seemed perpetually attached to her clipboard, directed us to the original positions. The bride's sister and niece need to be prominently placed, she explained, looking confused when I expressed surprise. Those are the explicit instructions from the groom. I smiled gratefully, realizing Ryan must have intervened. Lily looked angelic in her flower girl dress, her hair styled in soft curls with small flowers woven through the strands. She held her basket of rose petals carefully, practicing the walking pace we'd rehearsed countless times on our hotel room carpet. "Remember, slow steps," I whispered to her as we waited in the anteroom with the other bridesmaids. "And it's okay if you don't drop the petals perfectly. The important thing is to enjoy yourself." Lily nodded solemnly. "1, 2, 3, drop," she whispered, her personal mantra for the task ahead. Madison had been keeping her distance all morning, communicating through her bridal party rather than directly with me. The other bridesmaids, mostly Madison's college friends and colleagues, were polite but distant, clearly aware of some tension but uncertain of its source. As the ceremony start time approached, activity in the preparation area increased. The wedding planner directed photographers, the bridesmaids touched up their makeup, and Madison remained sequestered in a private room with her makeup artist and hairstylist for final adjustments. Lily began to show signs of sensory overload, blinking rapidly at the bright lights, covering her ears when multiple people spoke at once. I guided her to a quieter corner, helping her regulate with deep breathing exercises. "You're doing great," I assured her. "It's almost time for your big moment." A staff member appeared with water bottles for the wedding party. Lily reached for one eagerly, the excitement had made her thirsty, but her small hands fumbled with the unfamiliar designer glass bottle. It slipped, splashing water onto the floor. "I'm sorry," Lily gasped, immediately dropping to her knees to try to clean up the spill with her bare hands. "It's okay," I soothed, looking around for napkins. "Accidents happen." That's when Madison emerged from her private room, resplendent in a custom designer gown that probably cost more than my car. Her timing couldn't have been worse. She stepped directly into the small puddle, the water darkening a tiny spot on the hem of her dress. Her reaction was immediate and volcanic. "What the hell?" she shrieked, jumping back. "My dress. My Marchesa custom gown." Lily flinched at the volume, covering her ears instinctively. "It's just water," I said quickly, stepping between them. "It will dry in minutes. It's barely noticeable." Madison's face contorted with rage. "Barely noticeable? Are you blind? This dress cost $30,000. She looked at Lily with naked contempt. "I knew this would happen. I knew she would ruin everything." "Madison, lower your voice," I warned, seeing Lily begin to rock slightly, her self-soothing mechanism when stressed. "You're scaring her." "I don't care," Madison hissed, though she did lower her volume marginally, perhaps aware of the growing audience of bridesmaids and hotel staff. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. I offered you a solution, and you threw it back in my face. Now look what's happened." She pushed past me toward Lily, who had retreated against the wall, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" Madison accused, looming over my daughter. "And no," Lily stammered, tears welling in her eyes. "It was an accident. I'm sorry." "Madison, back off right now," I warned, moving to intervene. But I wasn't fast enough. With a swift, shocking movement, Madison grabbed Lily by her carefully styled hair and yanked her toward the door. "You're done here," she snarled, dragging my daughter, who cried out in pain and terror. "I want both of you out of my wedding." Time seemed to slow down. I heard gasps from the bridesmaids, saw the wedding coordinator's hand fly to her mouth in shock. But all I could focus on was my daughter's face contorted in pain and fear as her aunt, her blood relative, dragged her by the hair like a rag doll. I lunged forward, breaking Madison's grip on Lily's hair with a forceful slap to her wrist. I pulled my sobbing daughter against me protectively, rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced coursing through me. "Don't you ever touch my child again," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "What is wrong with you?" Madison rubbed her wrist, her face flushed with anger. What's wrong with me? You bring your defective kid to my perfect day, let her ruin my designer dress, and you ask what's wrong with me? The hallway had gone deathly quiet. Even Lily's sobs had softened to hiccuping breaths as she pressed her face against my side. Defective? I repeated, incredulous. Is that how you see your niece? As defective? Oh, drop the sanctimonious act, Madison sneered. Everyone tiptoes around it, but we all know the truth. There's something wrong with her. She's not normal. She's embarrassing. Each word felt like a physical blow. Not because they hurt me, I'd long ago stopped caring about Madison's approval, but because Lily could hear them. My sweet, sensitive daughter who already struggled to understand why the world wasn't built for people like her was hearing her aunt call her defective and embarrassing. The only person embarrassing themselves right now is you, I said evenly. Attacking a child half your size because of a water spill that will dry in 10 minutes? That's not the behavior of someone who should be getting married. That's the behavior of a spoiled, entitled brat who never grew up. Madison's eyes widened. I'd never spoken to her this way, never stood up to her so directly. For a moment, she seemed at a loss for words. Then the hallway door opened, and Ryan's parents entered, followed by several guests who had apparently heard the commotion. Mrs. Thompson, an elegant woman in her 60s, took in the scene with shrewd eyes, Madison in her wedding dress with a murderous expression, me protectively holding a crying child with disrupted hair, and a half-dozen bridesmaids and staff looking horrified. What on earth is going on here? She asked, her cultured voice sharp with concern. The ceremony was supposed to start 5 minutes ago. Madison immediately transformed, her face arranging itself into an expression of wounded dignity. A minor issue with the flower girl, she said smoothly. She spilled water on my dress deliberately and she grabbed my daughter by the hair and dragged her, I interrupted, unwilling to let Madison's version stand. She physically assaulted an 8-year-old child over a water spill. Mrs. Thompson's eyebrows rose nearly to her hairline. Is this true? She asked, looking not at Madison or me, but at the wedding coordinator who had witnessed everything. Jennifer, the coordinator, looked deeply uncomfortable but nodded. The child accidentally spilled water, and the bride did react physically, she confirmed diplomatically. It wasn't an accident. Madison insisted. She's been a problem all weekend. Amber refused my generous offer to excuse them from the ceremony because she knew this would happen. Generous offer? Mrs. Thompson repeated, her gaze shifting between us. I was about to explain when another voice joined the conversation, deep, authoritative, and unmistakably angry. What generous offer, Madison? Ryan stood in the doorway, handsome in his tuxedo but with an expression that suggested he'd heard far more than his fiancé would have preferred. The hallway fell silent as Ryan took in the scene. His gaze moved from Madison's defensive posture to Lily's tear-streaked face and disrupted hair, where several of the small flowers had been pulled loose during Madison's assault. What's going on? He asked, his normally friendly face set in uncharacteristic lines of concern. I heard shouting all the way from the groom's quarters. His eyes settled on Lily, who was still trembling against me. Lily, are you okay? Before I could answer, Madison stepped forward, placing herself between Ryan and us. It's nothing, darling. Just a little pre-wedding tension. You know it's bad luck to see me before the ceremony. She attempted to guide him back toward the door, but Ryan remained unmoved. That doesn't look like nothing, he said firmly, nodding toward Lily. Why is she crying? And why did I hear you shouting about a generous offer? Madison's smile became strained. It's really not the time. She offered me $15,000 to take Lily and leave the wedding, I interrupted, beyond caring about social niceties. When I refused, she became increasingly hostile. Just now, when Lily accidentally spilled water on the hem of her dress, Madison grabbed her by the hair and dragged her across the room. Ryan's face drained of color. You did what? He asked Madison, his voice barely above a whisper. She's exaggerating, Madison said quickly. The child was being difficult, and I may have been a bit firm, but I saw it, one of the bridesmaids, Tiffany, I thought her name was, spoke up unexpectedly. She really did grab the little girl by the hair. It was shocking. Madison shot Tiffany a look of pure venom. Stay out of this. Ryan ignored the exchange, instead moving past Madison to kneel in front of Lily, who was still partially hidden behind me. He lowered himself to her eye level, his movements gentle and non-threatening. Hey there, Lily, he said softly. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Nobody should ever pull your hair or hurt you like that. Are you okay? Lily peeked out from behind me, her eyes red but the tears subsiding. She nodded slightly. I'm sorry about your aunt's dress, she whispered. It was an accident. I know it was, Ryan assured her. And you know what? It's just a dress. Even fancy dresses are just things, and things aren't as important as people. Especially not awesome people like you. Something in his kindness, this simple human decency that should have been the baseline but felt extraordinary in the moment, broke through Lily's distress. She offered him a watery smile. Ryan stood, turning to face Madison with an expression I couldn't quite read, disappointment, perhaps, or a deeper disillusionment. $15,000? He asked quietly. You tried to pay off your sister to remove her child from our wedding? Madison's composure slipped further. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. This wedding has to be perfect. Your father's business associates, the magazine feature, everything depends on. On what? Ryan interrupted. On a child being excluded because she might not fit your aesthetic? On family being treated like props in some magazine spread? Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, her elegant features set in a frown. Madison, dear, I think we need to take a moment here. This behavior is concerning. Concerning? Madison's voice rose again. What's concerning is that my own family is sabotaging the most important day of my life. First Amber refuses a perfectly reasonable financial arrangement, then her weird kid ruins my dress, and now everyone's acting like I'm the villain. The cruelty of her words hung in the air. Even those who had been neutral observers seemed shocked by Madison's naked contempt for her niece. A movement in the doorway caught my attention. A young man with a camera, part of the videography team, stood frozen, his equipment clearly operational. Next to him, Ryan's father looked on with an expression of profound disappointment. How long have you been filming? Madison demanded, noticing them at the same time I did. The coordinator asked us to get some behind-the-scenes footage of the wedding party preparations, the young man stammered. Standard package stuff. I was just coming to get shots of the bridesmaids when. Turn that off immediately. Madison ordered. Actually, Ryan said, his voice suddenly firm, I'd like to see what was captured. A tense silence fell as the videographer connected his camera to a tablet he pulled from his bag. After a moment of fumbling, he handed it to Ryan, who watched with increasingly grim expression. The audio was clearly audible to everyone in the hallway, Madison's shrill accusations, Lily's frightened cries, the gasps of onlookers as Madison grabbed my daughter's hair. When the video ended, Ryan looked up at Madison with an expression I'd never seen on his normally cheerful face. I don't know who you are right now, he said quietly. The woman I fell in love with would never treat a child like that. Would never try to buy off her own sister. Would never call an innocent kid defective. Ryan, Madison's voice had shifted to a pleading tone. You don't understand. I've been under so much stress with the wedding planning. Stop, he held up a hand. Stress doesn't make someone cruel. It might make you short-tempered or forgetful, but it doesn't make you offer bribes to exclude family members or physically assault a child. Madison's face crumpled into an expression of calculated vulnerability. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Let's not let one bad moment ruin our special day. Ryan looked at her for a long moment, then turned to his parents. I need to speak with Madison. Privately. His mother nodded, a knowing look passing between them. Of course. We'll inform the guests there will be a slight delay. As Ryan guided Madison into a nearby room, closing the door firmly behind them, I felt a wave of exhaustion crash over me. I knelt to check on Lily, who seemed to be recovering from the shock but still clung to my hand with unusual intensity. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked, gently fixing her hair where Madison had disrupted it. She nodded, but her eyes remained troubled. "Is Aunt Madison mad at me because I'm different?" she asked in a small voice that broke my heart. "No, honey," I said firmly. "Aunt Madison is dealing with her own problems that have nothing to do with you. You didn't do anything wrong." Mrs. Thompson approached us, her expression softened with concern. "I believe there's a quiet lounge down the hall," she suggested. "Perhaps you'd both like a moment to collect yourselves? I can have some hot chocolate sent in for the little one." I nodded gratefully, surprised by her kindness. As we followed her to the indicated room, I couldn't help wondering what was happening behind the closed door where Ryan and Madison were having their private conversation. Part of me, a small, vindictive part one wasn't proud of, hoped he was calling off the wedding entirely. The larger part just felt sad for everyone involved, especially Lily, who had been so excited to participate in her aunt's special day. In the quiet lounge, with Lily sipping hot chocolate and slowly regaining her equilibrium, I tried to process the whirlwind of events. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear: the relationship between Madison and me would never be the same. Some lines, once crossed, changed everything forever. 20 minutes stretched into 45 as Lily and I waited in the quiet lounge. The hot chocolate had done its work, bringing color back to her cheeks and a semblance of calm to her demeanor. Mrs. Thompson had thoughtfully sent in a staff member with a brush and fresh flowers to fix Lily's hair, restoring the delicate arrangement that had been disrupted during Madison's attack. "Do I still get to drop the flower petals?" Lily asked, tentatively hopeful despite everything. "I don't know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "We'll have to see what happens next." A soft knock on the door preceded Ryan's entrance. His tie was loosened, his previously perfect hair slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. His expression was solemn but composed. "Amber, Lily," he greeted us with a tired smile. "I wanted to update you personally." He sat in an armchair across from us, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "The wedding is postponed." Despite everything, I felt a pang of shock. "Postponed?" Ryan nodded. "Madison is not in a state to continue today. She's locked herself in the bridal suite and refuses to come out or speak to anyone except her parents." "I'm sorry," I said automatically, then wondered why I was apologizing. Ryan shook his head. "Please don't be. This isn't your fault, or Lily's," he added, smiling gently at my daughter. "What happened today forced me to confront some truths I've been avoiding for a long time." He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. "I knew Madison could be demanding, perfectionistic. But I always thought it came from a place of passion and drive. I never imagined she would behave the way she did today." His eyes met mine, regret evident in them. "I should have seen the signs earlier." There were incidents, moments where her reaction to minor inconveniences seemed disproportionate. I told myself it was pre-wedding stress. "What happens now?" I asked, uncertain of our role in this unfolding drama. "My parents are informing the guests that due to an unforeseen family situation, the ceremony will not take place today," Ryan explained. "The reception space will still be open for a dinner, since everything's paid for and prepared." He hesitated. "I'd really like you both to stay, as my guests, not as wedding participants." Lily looked to me questioningly. I weighed the offer, torn between wanting to escape the entire situation and recognizing that an abrupt departure might further traumatize Lily, who was just beginning to recover her equilibrium. "Are you sure that's appropriate?" I asked. "With Madison still here." "Madison won't be joining," Ryan said firmly. "Her parents are with her now, making arrangements to leave separately. And honestly, I think it would mean a lot to my family, especially my mother. She's..." He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. She's quite upset about how Madison treated Lily. The unexpected show of support from Ryan's family, virtual strangers to us, was surprisingly moving. It stood in stark contrast to my own parents' typical response, which would undoubtedly have been to minimize Madison's behavior and suggest I had somehow provoked it. Okay, I agreed cautiously. We'll stay. But if it becomes uncomfortable for Lily in any way, we'll need to leave. Of course, Ryan nodded. I completely understand. What followed was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. The grand ballroom, decorated for a wedding that wouldn't happen, became the setting for what could only be described as an elegant but awkward dinner party. Guests milled about in formal attire, exchanging hushed theories about the postponement, while staff discreetly removed ceremonial elements like the unity candle and bride and groom cake toppers. Ryan's mother proved unexpectedly gracious in crisis. She circulated among the guests with practiced ease, offering a carefully worded explanation that managed to acknowledge the situation without providing salacious details. A deeply personal family matter requires our attention and respect, she repeated diplomatically. Madison and Ryan have decided to postpone their vows until matters can be properly resolved. More surprising was her attentiveness to Lily. She personally ensured that a special plate was prepared for her with foods arranged separately, somehow intuiting my daughter's preference without being told, and found a quieter corner table where the overwhelming stimulation of the crowded reception would be minimized. My grandson is on the spectrum, she explained quietly when I thanked her. I recognize some of the patterns. Your daughter is a delightful child. As the evening progressed, I found myself approached by various guests, some offering sympathetic glances, others more direct in their curiosity. I always thought Madison seemed intense, confided one of the bridesmaids, the one who had spoken up to confirm Madison's assault on Lily. But I never imagined she'd go this far. Is your daughter okay? She's resilient, I replied, watching Lily carefully from across the room where she was showing Ryan's nephew her special technique for folding napkins into rabbits. Children often are, when given the chance to recover with support. A woman I recognized as one of Madison's college friends approached next. I should have said something years ago, she said, her voice low. Madison has always been cruel to those she considers beneath her. In college, she reduced our roommate to tears regularly for the smallest infractions, using her hairdryer, returning 5 minutes late with a shared textbook. She shook her head. I told myself it was just her high standards, but seeing what happened today. I wish I'd spoken up sooner. As the night wore on, a clearer picture emerged through these interactions. Madison's behavior toward Lily hadn't been an isolated incident or a stress-induced aberration. It was part of a pattern that many had observed but few had challenged. Her carefully cultivated image of sophisticated perfection had intimidated people into silence. Ryan found me as the evening was winding down, Lily having fallen asleep in a plush armchair in the corner, exhausted from the day's emotional roller coaster. How are you holding up? He asked, his expression genuinely concerned. Surprisingly okay, I admitted. Your family has been incredibly kind, considering the circumstances. They're good people, he said simply. And they recognize the same in you and Lily. He hesitated. I want you to know I've ended things with Madison, properly ended them, not just postponed. I wasn't entirely surprised, but the finality of it still felt momentous. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I understood the pain of having to let go of a future you had planned and believed in. Ryan nodded. It was the right decision. Honestly, it's been coming for a while. Today just brought clarity. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. After you left with Lily, I confronted Madison about the check she offered you. She didn't deny it, in fact, she defended it as practical. When I pushed further, she revealed other incidents I hadn't known about, other manipulations and cruelties she'd enacted or planned. He looked genuinely shaken. She talked about people as if they were props in her life, obstacles to remove or assets to display. Including me, to some extent. Our wedding wasn't about our relationship but about the connections it would create, the social standing it would solidify. I wasn't sure how to respond. Madison had always been status-conscious and materialistic, but the depth of calculation Ryan described suggested something beyond ordinary ambition. "What will you do now?" I asked. Ryan shrugged, a hint of his usual easygoing nature returning. "Take some time to reflect. Focus on work for a while." He glanced at Lily's sleeping form. "And maybe be a better uncle to my niece. If that's okay with you." The offer caught me by surprise. "You'd still want that connection? Even after?" "Especially after," he said firmly. "Family isn't just about blood or legal ties. It's about who shows up, who cares. Lily deserves people in her life who see how amazing she is." As if sensing she was being discussed, Lily stirred slightly in her sleep, clutching Hoppy tighter. "I should get her back to our room," I said, moving to gather our things. Ryan nodded. "Of course. Let me help you." As we left the reception, I caught sight of Madison's parents slipping out a side entrance, their expressions grim. They didn't acknowledge me, but I hadn't expected them to. In their eyes, I would always be the one who had exposed their golden child's true nature rather than the one who had been wronged. Back in our hotel room, as I gently changed Lily into her pajamas without waking her, I reflected on the day's extraordinary turn of events. What had begun as yet another exercise in enduring Madison's superiority had transformed into something unexpected, a moment of truth that had shattered carefully maintained facades and revealed the genuine character of everyone involved. I tucked Lily in, grateful that children her age were often more resilient than adults gave them credit for. Tomorrow we would talk more about what happened, process the emotions in age-appropriate ways. But tonight, she slept peacefully, apparently having found enough safety and support throughout the evening to counter the trauma of her aunt's attack. As I prepared for bed myself, my phone pinged with a message from an unknown number. "This is Sarah Thompson, Ryan's mother. I hope you don't mind Ryan sharing your number. I wanted to check that Lily is alright and to let you know how truly sorry I am for what happened today. No child should ever be treated that way. If you're comfortable with it, I'd like to keep in touch. My grandson would love a playdate with Lily sometime. Take care, both of you." I stared at the message, a lump forming in my throat. In the midst of all the chaos and hurt, unexpected connections had formed, people who valued Lily and me for exactly who we were, not who they wanted us to be. It wasn't the outcome anyone had anticipated from this wedding day, but perhaps it was the one we needed most. For weeks after the wedding that wasn't, Lily and I sat in our small apartment living room, sorting through a box of her artwork from the school year that had just ended. The refrigerator could only display so many masterpieces at once, so we had developed a rotating gallery system. "I think this one should go up next," Lily decided, holding up a watercolor painting of a rabbit that bore a striking resemblance to Hoppy. "It's summer now, and rabbits like summer." "Excellent choice," I agreed, adding it to our display pile. "Your use of color has really developed this year." Lily beamed at the praise, then returned to serious contemplation of her next selection. The change in her over the past month had been subtle but significant. The therapist Ryan had connected us with, a specialist in childhood trauma who happened to have extensive experience with neurodivergent children, had been instrumental in helping Lily process what happened at the wedding. "Sometimes people do mean things because they're hurting inside," Lily had explained to me after her third session, repeating what seemed to be the therapist's words in her literal way. "It doesn't make it okay, but it helps us understand. Aunt Madison must hurt a lot inside to be so mean outside." The wisdom from the mouth of my 8-year-old had brought tears to my eyes. While I wasn't quite ready to extend such compassionate understanding to my sister, I admired Lily's capacity for it. Madison herself had made no attempt to contact us since the wedding day. Through my parents, who had called in a fury after hearing Madison's version of events, I learned she had retreated to a spa resort in Arizona to recover from the traumatic sabotage of her special day. The narrative she had constructed cast her as the victim of my jealousy and Lily's deliberate misbehavior, a version my parents seemed all too willing to accept without question. I had finally done something I should have done years ago, set a clear boundary. Unless you're willing to hear my side of what happened, we need to take a break from communication, I had told them firmly. Lily deserves better than to be around people who think her existence is an inconvenience. Their sputtering responses and attempts to minimize Madison's behavior only confirmed I'd made the right decision. For the first time in my life, I had prioritized my daughter's well-being and my own self-respect over the desperate need for family approval that had governed so many of my choices. The unexpected silver lining had been the relationship that developed with Ryan's family. True to her word, Sarah Thompson had arranged a playdate between Lily and her grandson, 8-year-old Max, who shared many of Lily's sensory sensitivities and special interests. The two had formed an immediate bond over their mutual fascination with rabbits and elaborate systems for organizing their toy collections. Ryan himself had become something of a friend, checking in regularly and occasionally joining us for casual outings to the park or museum. There was nothing romantic in it. Both of us were processing the aftermath of Madison's behavior in our own ways, but his genuine interest in Lily's well-being and his easy acceptance of her quirks were refreshing. "Do you think Uncle Ryan will like my painting?" Lily asked now, interrupting my thoughts as she held up another watercolor, this one depicting what appeared to be 3 figures at a park. The Uncle Ryan designation had emerged naturally after several visits, and I hadn't corrected it. Despite the dissolution of his engagement to Madison, Ryan had made it clear he considered us family in the ways that mattered. "I think he'll love it," I assured her. "Is that him in the picture?" Lily nodded. "That's him, and that's you, and that's me in the middle. We're at the park with the good swings." She studied her work critically. "I made us all holding hands because we're like a family team now." "A family team," I repeated softly, touched by her perception. "That's a beautiful way to put it." The doorbell rang, interrupting our art curation. Lily jumped up eagerly. She knew Ryan was expected for dinner, but I reminded her of our door safety rule. "Remember, look through the peephole first, and only open if it's someone we know." She nodded seriously and went to the door, standing on tiptoes to peer through the peephole. "It's Uncle Ryan," she announced, unlocking the door with careful precision. Ryan entered with his usual easy smile, a small gift bag in one hand and a larger shopping bag in the other. "Hello, Wilson ladies," he greeted us, high-fiving Lily and nodding warmly to me. "I come bearing gifts and news." Lily bounced excitedly. "Is it rabbit news? Or art news? Or ice cream news?" Ryan laughed. "It's job news, actually." He set down his bags and took a seat on our well-worn couch. "Remember I mentioned my family's educational foundation? They're launching a new initiative focused on inclusive education for neurodivergent students, and they need a program coordinator with classroom experience and personal understanding of the challenges." I stared at him, comprehension dawning slowly. Is this a job offer?" "It's an invitation to interview," he clarified. "No guarantees, and absolutely no pressure. But the hiring committee saw your resume and was impressed. The position comes with a significant salary increase from your current teaching job, plus benefits that include specialized learning support that could benefit Lily." My mind raced with possibilities. The financial stability such a position would provide, the opportunity to work in a field I was passionate about, the support for Lily's educational needs, it was almost too perfect. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "This is incredible, but I hope your family doesn't feel obligated because of what happened with Madison." Ryan shook his head firmly. "This isn't charity or guilt. My mother's been planning this initiative for years. Max was her inspiration. When I mentioned your background and experience, she thought you might be a perfect fit. That's all." Before I could respond, Lily tugged at Ryan's sleeve. "What's in the bags?" she asked, her priority system operating on a different track than the adults. Ryan grinned. "The small one is for you, a congratulations for finishing 2nd grade with flying colors." He handed her the gift bag. Lily opened it carefully, methodically removing the tissue paper and setting it aside before extracting the gift. A high-quality set of professional watercolors, the kind I could never justify purchasing on my teacher's salary. Real artist paints, she gasped, her face lighting up. Like the ones in art class that only the teacher can use. I noticed how much you love painting, Ryan explained. I thought you might enjoy experimenting with some new tools. While Lily examined her treasure, Ryan turned to me. The other bag is actually for both of you. Remember when my mom mentioned her friend's lake house? They're not using it next month and offered to let us, all three of us, stay for a week. It's quiet, private, on a small lake with great swimming. I thought it might be a nice getaway after everything. The thoughtfulness of the gesture left me momentarily speechless. A vacation, a real vacation, not just a day trip to the local community pool, was something Lily and I had never been able to afford. That's incredibly generous, I finally managed. But I wouldn't want to impose on your family's connections. Amber, Ryan interrupted gently, when are you going to stop refusing good things because you're afraid of being a burden? You deserve support. Lily deserves experiences like this. And I genuinely enjoy the company. No strings, no expectations. Just friends enjoying summer at a lake. His words struck a nerve. How many times had I declined help, refused kindness, limited opportunities for Lily and myself because I was determined to do everything on my own? It had become such a habit, born from years of being told my problems were mine alone to solve, that I hardly recognized it anymore. You're right, I admitted. We'd love to go to the lake house. Thank you. Ryan's smile widened. Great. We'll figure out the details later. For now, I believe I was promised spaghetti for dinner? As the evening progressed, Lily proudly showing Ryan her school art portfolio, the three of us making dinner together, later playing a board game that had been modified to accommodate Lily's need for clear, concrete rules, I felt a sense of peace that had been elusive for much of my adult life. The events at Madison's wedding had been painful and shocking, but they had also been clarifying. Like a forest fire that destroys what's weak and diseased while creating space for new growth, the confrontation had burned away toxic relationships and expectations, allowing healthier connections to take root. I still had moments of anger when I thought about Madison dragging Lily by the hair, still felt the sting of my parents' immediate defense of her indefensible behavior. But those feelings no longer dominated my emotional landscape. Instead, I focused on nurturing what was good. Lily's resilience and growth, the unexpected friendship with Ryan and his family, the potential career opportunity that aligned with my values and needs. $15,000 had seemed like a fortune that wedding day, enough to tempt me for that brief, shameful moment. But watching Lily now, laughing as she and Ryan collaborated on a colorful watercolor landscape with her new paints, I knew no amount of money could have compensated for what we would have lost. Not just our dignity, but the chance to discover who truly belonged in our lives. After Lily went to bed, Ryan helped me clean up the art supplies and dinner dishes. She's an amazing kid, he commented as we worked side by side in the small kitchen. The way she sees the world, the connections she makes that others miss, it's remarkable. She is, I agreed, feeling the familiar swell of love and pride. I'm lucky to be her mom. And she's lucky to have you, Ryan countered. The way you stood up for her that day, not everyone would have torn up that check, Amber. Not everyone would have put their child's dignity above financial gain or family peace. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. It wasn't really a choice. She was watching. What would it have taught her if I'd taken that money? That she should hide who she is? That she's someone to be ashamed of? Exactly my point, Ryan said softly. You showed her that she's worth more than any amount of money, that she deserves to be included and respected just as she is. That's a gift that will shape her entire life. Later, after Ryan had gone home and I was checking on Lily one last time before bed, I found her sleeping peacefully, Hoppy clutched in one arm and her new paintbrushes lined up in perfect size order on her bedside table. In sleep, her face relaxed from its usual intense concentration, she looked so vulnerable and yet so strong, a perfect contradiction, just like life itself. I thought about the journey we'd been on since that terrible moment in the wedding venue hallway. We hadn't just survived Madison's cruelty, we had emerged stronger, clearer about our boundaries, more connected to people who truly valued us. The path ahead wasn't perfect or certain, the job interview might not lead to an offer, the budding friendships might not last forever, but for perhaps the first time, I felt genuinely hopeful about our future. My sister's wedding day had become a turning point, but not in the way anyone could have predicted. In refusing her money and standing up to her abuse, I had finally broken free from patterns established since childhood. In the aftermath, I had discovered that family isn't always defined by blood or obligation, but by who shows up, who cares, who sees your true value. That lesson alone was worth more than $15,000 could ever buy. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family peace and doing what's right? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you treat yourself and those who depend on you. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.